time to talk about Silo Season 2, Episode 2, Order, and Episode 3, Solo. The TLDR is I think Silo is probably the best show currently releasing on TV, and I think you should be watching. Episode 2 and 3 really bring me back into it, where Episode 1 was a bit of a slow, slightly disappointing start. Personally, I'm still of the mindset that 1 and 2 should have been released together, and that would have been like a perfect intro into this season. And if we had to release them episodically one by one, I think we would have been better off starting with Episode 2, leading into Episode 1, and then coming back into Episode 3, so that we'd have had like that exciting, explosive start we get into where the whole Silo is up in arms, and then we would have gone into like this quiet, more brooding moment with Jules, and then we would have blended into Episode 3 where we're sort of back and forth between those two states. That's just like a review storytelling note, but these videos are more about us trying to solve the mystery and unravel what's going on in the Silo using the clues they give us. So let's go ahead and dive in, starting with we don't know why we are here. It seems like Jules' survival forces Bernard to like start asking the big questions about why they're here and how they continue to survive and be successful within the setup of the Silo. And of course it forces the whole Silo to question why they're in this Silo, whether or not they can ever return outside if today is that day. I'll also say that Judge Meadows is becoming a really intriguing character. She was not even on my radar in season 1. I sort of saw her as like this soft, weak character who'd already been defeated by her own demons. And now we're getting a little bit more information about why she was that way in season 1. Apparently she was Bernard's shadow and declined that role. It is giving strong the giver kind of vibes, like that one person who's holding the truth and not necessarily being able to interact with the rest of the people around them after that's revealed. And that is also like pushing me more into wondering like specifically what does Bernard know, what is his role, and what was it about that role that broke Meadows so thoroughly. Over in Episode 3 we get more details about the guy in the vault, Solo, and part of what we learn is that he is in that vault specifically to keep other people out. Like the only reason he's surviving and existing is to be in the vault and keep other people out of the vault. This begs the obvious question, what is in the vault? Why can't other people see what's in the vault? And why is maintaining that vault and keeping other people out of it more important than the survival of the Silo? Also, we learn that Solo was the shadow, which makes me wonder where the original Russell ran off to. Wild speculation, but I do wonder if Bernard is actually Russell from Vault 17. It's 100% possible that Bernard is just a super strict rule follower. He just really believes in the order or whatever, or has very firm training. But it also makes sense to me that if he's already seen a rebellion kill off an entire Silo, that he might be more paranoid, have a firmer hand at trying to suppress rebellions and keep everything in line. And Bernard does mention in an offhand way in Episode 3 that he has a suit made for him sitting in the Silo. So if that's the case across all Silos for this specific position, it's 100% possible. Another general note I have is that Solo just gives away a lot. And it's highly confidential information, like talking about the sun, talking about birds, talking about potentially the soil being contaminated. And we as viewers know minimally the sun and the bird stuff is true, which makes us more likely to believe some of the other information he gives us, even though he seems like he could be an unreliable narrator. And if he is willing to give away so much information but still not willing to talk about what's in the vault or let other people into the vault, makes me more crazy to know what's in there, what he's protecting, like what would be the last line that he couldn't share with other people even when he's telling Jules all this other like highly confidential stuff. And it really has me turning in this direction that it seems like human survival is not the primary goal of the Silo. And if that's the case, then that makes me wonder if this is sort of like a Matrix situation. Not that people are batteries or whatever, but like there was some kind of AI or robot war that went on. The AI and or the robots win. For whatever reasons, humans are the best people to maintain their servers, and they're doing it in these silos. Everything else, like the whole society that is formed and living there, they're all superfluous just to keep this one dude who's maintaining the server room. Jules gets a lot to think think about when she learns about how Silo 17's rebellion happened. It's that someone who went out to clean just decided not to clean, the same way she didn't clean in her own vault. And it's made her realize that she has to return to Silo 18 to let them know that it isn't safe to go outside, or else they might suffer the same tragedy that's happened in Silo 17. The engineers in the Down Deep seem a little bit adrift. We have conflicting perspective, with Walker kind of being the fence sitter, Shirley being the overeager rebellion instigator, and her boss there sort of being like the more planned, quiet, steadying hand. I think until the three of them really get a chance to talk and really get to figure out a strong strategy, we're gonna have a lot of tension and turmoil, but not a lot of action down there. Jules' dad is struggling a lot, which makes sense. He was able to reconcile with his daughter right before she was sent outside to clean, and then instead of having the resolution of her death on screen, he sees her go up over the ridge, which just kind of leaves him wondering and makes him realize that, like, even if she did die over the ridge, she has started something in their silo that's like bigger than either of them or their relationship or anything like that. And he has to figure out what he's gonna do. Is he going to sort of join the rebellion, join the inquisitive people pushing boundaries like his wife, like Jules, or is he gonna stay in his own lane and continue to do what they told him to do? In episode 3, he does decide to actually pull that woman's birth control, which is sort of like its own act of defiance and rebellion, and another angle to kind of like push and tackle the authority that's holding everyone down and keeping secrets from them. We do not know who built the silo, so we finally do get to see the vault inside Silo 18, and honestly it's not much to look at. They do have a sophisticated screen in there, and they must have some kind of more sophisticated technology than we've previously been exposed to, because Bernard can watch what's happening on Jules's view screen, so he knows she's in Vault 17. Besides the pact that everyone knows about and memorizes, there's a set of directions written down in a book called The Order, and that is a written book that remains inside the vault. There's also doors on either side of this view screen that lead to something else, and perhaps is where supplies or living quarters or something are held. Maybe a power generator. I don't really 100% know. The fact that Solo is alive inside the vault and seems to have access to what I assume are MRE rations based off of like the chicken gumbo that he gives Jules indicates that there's more in the vault than we see when we're in there with Bernard, because he's just in like a lit up room. And we learn that Bernard knows about Silo 17's rebellion and critical failure. Again, we don't know how he knows. Like, can he communicate with other silos? Is he from Silo 17? And none of this information is super direct, but it again reinforces the idea that the silo was built intentionally to have backwards older technology and to be an observation state. Solo drops some serious lore on us. We learn that there are 50 silos. The silo he's in is 17. We're assuming the silo Jules comes from is 18 because the keychain Bernard has that number on it, and also because the hard drive Jules found was 18. And for me, the fact that the silos go by numbers instead of names is again reinforcing the concept that this might be robots or AI who made this plan. I know this is a big leap, but people name things, whether they're ships, whether they're towns or buildings, we name them. And the fact that the silos are numbered says something about how important they were or were not to the creators or to the mindset of the creators. And to me, it's saying not human. We also learn it's possible that Bernard also doesn't know who built the silos. He tells Meadow he destroyed the hard drive he found with Jules. He didn't explore it. He doesn't know what information is on it. We know he saved the parts to the hard drive, so I don't know if he can fix it or get the information off of it. I'm also really curious about how this hard drive fell into like general population hands, because I would think this hard drive belonged in the server room. It had information that Bernard had access to on it, because we know the Carmody cleaning that was on it is also available in the server room. I'm not 100% confident that it's destroyed or that Bernard doesn't know this information, because he tells another lie to Meadows when he insists that Jules said she wanted to go outside, and Meadows later knows that this is a lie through her own personal investigation. So it's hard to say if Bernard is being truthful about this other information. It's something I'm taking note of, because it did seem like Bernard didn't know about the door at the bottom of the silos, so it is 100% possible that even the person who's running the server room and protecting the vaults doesn't really understand understand what's going on in a larger world context. And Solo lets some stuff slip too, like he says point blank that the suits they send people out to clean in are not meant to keep them safe. Which makes me again think that maybe the founders never intended the people to ever leave these silos, because minimally I feel like you'd have to go outside to get samples, or maybe you'd have to go outside to like clean the area around the silos so that it would one day be safe to return outside. I could be wrong. It could be 100% like we're just waiting for nature to heal itself kind of moment, but it does feel like even then, if we're waiting for nature to heal itself, we need to be able to go out and come back in with samples to see how that process is going. Also, this lets us know that the cleaning protocol in Silo 17 is the same as the cleaning protocol in Silo 18, which is interesting to me because in Silo 18 in season 1, they sort of implied that this cleaning protocol was put into place because of a rebellion that happened when people, quote unquote, wanted to go outside. They were able to, quote unquote, squash the rebellion and keep everyone safe from going outside. They put a new rule in place that said anyone who asks to go outside will go outside. And I've been pretty skeptical of this rebellion from the start because there's no like real proof that it happened or not. But this is another thing that's kind of like low-key pointing me towards all of this being a myth that they tell every single silo, even though it hasn't actually happened. And that would serve a couple functions. Like it would explain why they don't have any records from the before times. It would explain why this protocol is in place. And it would make people generally fearful and distrustful of rebellions. And since a rebellion is one of the key ways that we can lead to the destruction of an entire silo, it makes sense to make people anti-rebellion just from the jump. It seemed to me like Solo might have camera access from inside the vault. I know that Bernard has access to the suits. I don't know if he has access to all of the cameras across the silo, but the fact that Solo knew what happened to the people outside, like how long they survived in the open air, he had theories about why they made it so long, all of that kind of stuff, says to me that he was able to view them out there somehow. We also get a bit of a timeline lore drop. They have been saying things like 100 years ago there was a rebellion, or like we've been underground for X amount of years, stuff like that. And I've been really skeptical of it because the people who've been saying that have been like the people in power who've been lying to us about other things. But in this case, we know that Judge Meadows was Bernard's shadow 25 years ago, and that whatever happened in Vault 17 happened before Judge Meadows became the shadow. So it has to have at least happened 26 years ago. Again, it's very hard to trust these times and dates were given, and does time even mean anything when you can like put a chemical into people that makes them forget huge swaths of things? We don't know why everything outside the silo is the way it is. So Solo makes reference to tainted soil here, in that the dust kicks up in the air and it's actually that dust that kills people. I don't know if this is true or this is like a running theory he personally has. It both explains a lot of things and doesn't explain anything at the same time. Because if it is like a tainted soil situation, the dust kicks up and kills you, it sort of explains why there's variable times of death both in and outside of the suits. It also like explains why flora can't grow in this soil, and it probably explains why there's not a microbiome that's like broken down these bodies all across the silo in a different way than they currently have. But the answer of toxic soil leaves me with a lot of questions. Soil doesn't just stay on the top of the earth, it like filters down. So wouldn't the silos be in jeopardy? Wouldn't the groundwater be tainted? We know that steam comes up and powers the engine, and that steam would include water that could include tainted water from the water tables if it had made it that far down. And if it happened in just a concentrated burst around the silo area, I don't understand why it hasn't either like spread via the wind or gone down into the surrounding soil and diluted enough that we could like deal with it up in the air above. I don't know. I'm not a science person, so I could be saying stuff that's just point blank wrong, but it does feel to me like Solo has given us information that indicates whatever's happening isn't global, it's like an area specific issue, that his current theory doesn't really explain why it's still so concentrated after so long. Unless there's like someone outside actively continuing to pump it, or spray or whatever that's keeping us in place. We do not know when it will be safe to go outside, but we know today is not that day. I'm actually back on the train where we don't know that information. Like, sure, it's not safe to go outside without a suit, but given that the suits that the silo created are built specifically to fail, that says to me that you could make gear that would make it perfectly fine for you to go outside in. And because Solo talked about tainted soil and wind kicking up dust particles and stuff, it does make me think that this is more localized than I originally thought. It is making me wonder if there are outside forces that are continuing to reinforce the damage versus like some kind of natural disaster that we're waiting to clear up. Some notes I'm keeping right now that don't really fall into any of these buckets. My eyes are still on Rob. He's a pretty smart cookie. The fact that he immediately picked up the connection between Bernard and Meadows and him being dismissed as a potential shadow is interesting. The way he and his wife are talking about it and like really pushing for this promotion again makes me think the two of them have some kind of scheme. Kennedy takes like that memory drug and in like a dazed out stupor ends up attacking what was originally a peaceful protest and escalating it into violence and death. Because Rob is the last person who spoke to him, we do not know if Bernard directed him to do that or if Rob took initiative, push pressure on Bernard, or like show how valuable he is and maybe get back into like the shadow process. But he's like another actor in this who's in the dark and wants something very specific that he's not getting. And that makes him to me dangerous and someone who could really like muddy up these other plans or who might find information out and change his priorities, since it seems like everything he's doing is for the sake of his family. If he, I don't know, found out that what Bernard's doing is actually keeping people inside indefinitely and there's like another avenue that could lead to going back outside, I feel like that might be something that he'd want to do for the sake of his son. I'm keeping an eye on Walker, the Down Deep, Shirley. I still haven't got like a great connecting piece to why Walker and Shirley have a file in Judicial. I still don't 100% know what Shirley's boss's role is at this juncture. I know he talked to that metalsmithing guy and asked him not to make any weapons in episode 2, and then he asked for something else, but we don't know what it is because the camera cut away. But it makes me think he's got like his own plan, his own way to handle things. Really, we need the three of these like leaders in the Down Deep to unify if we're gonna get anywhere. I'm looking for Lucas from IT to pop back up. He's in the mines right now. We still haven't seen those mines, but I feel like he's got a role to play and we shouldn't forget him so early in. And at the end of episode 3, the deputy in the Down Deep asked for Billings to come down, and I am sort of curious about Billings. I know he's suspicious about the way that Jules went outside, even without her surviving, because she had told him that she never asked to go outside. Then he talks to the 5th witness, and that witness can't confirm that she heard that Jules asked to go outside, and he is the kind of man that needs rule and law and pact to be followed. The fact that he's now folded under Judicial and there's nothing in the pact for that, the fact that Meadows has asked for him to report directly to her and that circumnavigates people, all of that is like making him uncomfortable, making him suspicious that something else is going on, that the rule of law is not being followed, at least by some people. And even in that regard, I think he's uncomfortable with how he has a special dispensation to work his job even though he has the syndrome. And now he's going down to the Down Deep where there's a lot of unrest and where most of Jules's people are from. I just feel like that's an explosive situation where he's going to become significantly more involved than he wants to be. And that's all of my meanderings and wonderings about Silo Season 2, Episodes 2 and 3. But talk to me in those comments down below. What is your best theory right now for the Silo? And are you as excited as I am to figure it all out? And as always, keep reading.